everyone, how are you? It's Eva here. Today is the second part of how to sew holes in clothes, and last week we explored some hand stitching techniques and some basics on how to close the hole or how to make a feature out of it. Today I will show you different and creative ways to cover the hole and make a really cool statement. Let's go! I have tried to do most of these techniques using hand sewing because I realized that not everyone has a sewing machine. For some of these though, I have used sewing machine, and I'd say if you want a professional finish, you do really want to invest in a little sewing machine. They don't have to be expensive. In fact, you could get from eBay really good prices on second-hand machines and just have them serviced to make sure everything's fine. So I wouldn't, it's good to have the skills, and if you wish I can show you the basics on how to use a sewing machine. Just put in the comments below and subscribe to the channel. Starting with patches, I thought the elbow patch is the most obvious thing, especially of course if the holes on the elbow. The way to know where to place it is to measure either on your garment or on yourself from the wrist to the elbow is. So you might want to put the garment on, and then from that point, that's where you put the middle of the patch. The patch, as you can see, can be rounded, a little bit of an oval shape to it. However, you could play around with shapes. I will put together a video just on elbow patches, but we're just glancing over this. And you can see I have done one for my cardigan just to show you a variation that's a bit more interesting. You don't want to put extra bits onto a patch that is, say, at the back of your trousers or jeans, because it won't be comfortable to sit. It looks pretty cool, it's a bit different, and it covers any damage to the garment. Before covering any hole in your clothes, you need to stitch it together. I showed some basic ways in my previous video, but here we are going to use the stitches to cover the missing area. This will keep the area flat. If you try to stitch a round hole in a non-stretch textile, there will be distortion and puckering. Use thread in similar color to the garment and stitch as shown here. You can cover a hole with a pocket. This can be any shape you want. Use paper to make the desired pattern. The pocket should be big enough for your hand. You should also add extra few centimeters or around 1 inch to the top of it, so you can finish it neatly later. I would normally use a ruler such as Pattern Master, but as I can't find it anywhere today, I'm using the lines of this sheet as a guide. For symmetrical designs, fold the sheet in half before cutting the shape. You can adjust size if needed. A little tip: cutting with scissors to the right side of the pattern is inaccurate. Cutting with scissors left of the pattern cuts closer to the pattern edge. I have added green markings which signify fold lines. If you work with fabrics which fray, you will need to fold all around the pocket before sewing. You can mark the line on the actual fabric using pins. I'm showing an alternative method because pins may scratch your iron. Sew through both pattern and fabric, leaving loops. Cut the loops and carefully peel the pattern off. The thread markings stay on the fabric. Press the seam allowance. The top of the pattern is easier to fold. Use the original pattern as a guide, as shown here. Press and tuck. the raw edge in. Press again. You can stitch the folded edge down, but this is not compulsory. Take the marking threads off. Stitch loosely to keep in place temporarily. Stitch by hand all around the pocket. Or machine stitch like I have done here. Use plain stitch or something more exciting. Press flat, and here it is, a functioning pocket covering the hole fixed. There are lots of types of patch pockets, and I will dedicate an episode just on patch pockets in future. However, today I just thought to show you the basic on how to go about putting a basic one in case you have a hole in your garment and you want to cover it. Another thing you can do is to put a mock pocket that's not patch pocket, but it looks like Welt pocket, which is the type of pocket that goes on jackets, especially smart jackets, tailored jackets, also the back of trousers. You can use scrap fabric for the welt. As before, stitch the hole together to avoid further damage to the garment. Fold the chosen fabric in half, lengthways, and ensure the height covers the hole. You can also tilt it if desired. For women's garments, 8 to 10 centimeters width for this kind of pocket is a standard, so up to 4 inches. For menswear, add 2 to 3 centimeters. You need to add seam allowance to either side of what would be the finished welt. 1 centimeter per side is enough. Fold the welt piece as shown, right sides together, and stitch on both short sides. If you don't have a sewing machine, use a back stitch, which is a strong hand stitch. Alternatively, machine stitch is good. Trim the excess seam allowance and turn through to the right side. Press and stitch to the garment. Fold upwards. The neat fold of the welt should be on the top. Press to flatten. To stitch the short sides down, use a slip stitch as shown here. Alternate catching a thread from the garment and a few millimeters from the fold of the welt. You can also stitch the long side of the welt down using the same stitch to completely close if you wish. Another thing you can do is cover the hole with something more exciting than a patch or pocket where it's an actual object that you make. This could be origami like I have done on these designs from a previous collection, which I can show you how to do. Let me know below in the comments whether you'd want me to do that. Otherwise, what I did for this video is the idea came from the last video, and I thought, what else can I do with going around and circles, and started thinking about circles. And then I thought pom-poms, even though I'm not putting pom-poms on a hole, but as you can see here, the idea is that you start as if you're making a pom-pom and you use a different kind of thread, and you can put it on the hole, and you can make a cluster like we did last week, where even if you have just one hole, you could keep adding around it and make that would work really well, I think, on jackets or on jeans, on jean jackets, possibly on tops. It's quite a versatile technique, I think. As you can see here, I have used 3 different types of thread. In fact, one of them is just the strips from the remainder of the fabric that I used for the Welt mock pocket, and I just tore it into pieces, and as you can see, you can use any scrap if you desire. There are many creative ways to do that. I hope you have found this video useful. Let me know below whether there are any other techniques that you have used that I have not talked about. There is so much. I realized that I made 77 videos during putting the instructions together, so I couldn't really show everything. It's just a few bits, but I do hope that they are helpful for the time being at least. And as always, thanks for watching, and see you next week.